The Sunday school lesson for September the 8th, 2024 comes from Daniel chapter 3, verse 1 and verses 8 through 18. Daniel's friends refuse to bow. Welcome, viewers and subscribers to my channel, The Backstory and More. If you are new here, please notice the agenda. I will share the backstory, read the lesson text, and offer a brief lesson summary. Thank you so much for all that you do to help this channel grow one viewer and one subscriber at a time. The backstory takes us to Daniel chapter 2, verses 1 through 28. From the start of their captivity, Daniel and his friends had demonstrated exemplary faith in their God. Daniel chapter 1, verse 17 records that God provided knowledge and understanding all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. This unique ability to understand visions and dreams brought Daniel to prominence in a culture where dreams were thought to communicate significant messages. When King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream on one occasion, he first consulted his own wise men to get the interpretation. They requested that the king tell the contents of the dream so that they could concoct an interpretation of it. The king refused. He expected the wise men to give him the content of the dream as well as the interpretation. When Daniel learned of the king's dilemma and of his order for the execution of all the wise men, including Daniel and his friends, he and his friends brought the matter to God in prayer. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Armed with what the real king, God, had shown him, Daniel requested an audience with Nebuchadnezzar. King Nebuchadnezzar was troubled, and he wanted to be sure that Daniel could address two issues. Number one, was Daniel able to know the content of the dream? And two, what did the dream mean? Before giving the content and interpretation that God had revealed to him, Daniel wanted the king to know about the source of the information about to be conveyed. 6 times within verses 27 through 30, Daniel used either a form of the word reveal or a form of show to emphasize that neither he nor any other human being was responsible for what the king was about to hear. Only the God in heaven, who reveals mysteries, verse 28, could do what the king had asked. The backstory ends here, and today's lesson begins with the next frame. Verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Verses 8 through 10. Wherefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews. They spake and said to the king Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. Verses 11 through 12. And whoso falleth not down and worship, that he should be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Verses 13 through 14. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spake and said unto them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Do not ye serve my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Verse 15. Now, if ye be ready, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if you worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? Verses 16 through 18. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. A brief summary. Although Nebuchadnezzar was furious at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he did not act rashly. He invited them in and allowed them to explain themselves. He gave them a second chance. Their response was something like, There is no need for us to offer a defense of our actions. In short, they refused the second chance they were offered. Note that the king's request was not as drastic as it could have been, since he was not asking these Jews to stop worshiping their own God altogether. He was merely asking them to make a certain addition to their worship practice. Was this not the least they could do to pay him respect? Yet the modern habit of rationalizing questionable practices was nowhere to be found in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They knew that other gods were not to be worshipped alongside the God of Israel. God has no equal, and he will not tolerate being treated as if he does. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 35 and verse 39. Any action that grants unquestionable allegiance to a sovereign other than God is idolatry. That's what bowing before the statue would have done. It was one thing to work for the king and show him the basic respect due to those in authority. It was another thing entirely to acknowledge a rival to God. These three Jews expressed faith in God in two ways. One, they acknowledged that God was able to deliver them from both the blazing furnace and the king, who thought he had absolute power. They did not worship a weak God or a distant God who was unable to intervene in events on earth. They worshiped Israel's God, who had proven his ability and who desired to work for the good of those who loved him. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 9, and Romans chapter 8, verse 22. And second, these three men were firm in their worship of God to the point that they refused to bow, whether God chose to intervene or not. God's non-intervention was a strong possibility. In his larger plan, God does not always choose to intervene, as the deaths of Uriah, Jeremiah chapter 26, verses 20 through 23, and James, Acts chapter 12, verses 1 through 2, establish. Let me take this moment to say thank you to those of you who have already begun to share my video with others. Thank you for all that you do to help this channel reach its potential. Stay safe and may God bless. And join me soon for the next backstory and more.